You went 30 seconds over. I'll give the ranking member an extra 30 seconds.
You're very fair-minded, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ross, let me start with you. Did I hear you correctly to say that there were thousands or even hundreds of thousands of counterfeit Twitter accounts set up by Russian propaganda and disinformation for Vladimir Putin to pump his poison into the bloodstream of American social media? Is that right?
That's right, sir. And that's not just past tense. Those accounts are active on social media today. This is an ongoing campaign.
Well, we should be having a hearing about that. I appreciate your alerting to us what's taken place. Ms. Navaroli, so you've testified that in the months leading up to the November 2020 election, and then in the weeks before January 6th, you were growing increasingly anxious about the violent rhetoric and incitement that you saw posted on Twitter. Can you describe specifically what made you so concerned during that period? And did you raise your concerns with people at Twitter?
Thank you for that question. As I said in my opening statement, after former President Trump in his debate said the statement, stand back, stand by to the Proud Boys, my team, in discussion with other teams at Twitter, realized that we had a gap in our policies and that that could not be said on the platform because it would have gone too far. What we did see continue to happen was those statements, in addition to other coded incitement to violence or dog whistles, began to spring up on the platform. And so what was once fringe ideology or fringe statements that were calling for the overthrow of the government became a loud roar. And so we heard individuals beginning to say that they were locked and loaded, that they were ready for Civil War Part 2, that they were ready for another revolution, that they were ready for the day of the rope in very clear English on Twitter.
And on the January 6th committee, we have tens of thousands of statements like that being made on Twitter and other parts of social media. So we got a little taste of what you were experiencing on a daily basis. Now, there was this meeting on January 5th at Twitter. I don't think it was called specifically to look at what was going to happen the next day. That just happened to be a regular meeting. But at that meeting, you and other employees raised urgently the problem of what you saw coming on January 6th. How did Twitter management respond to the concerns that you raised?
That's a great question. And yes, that meeting was a regularly scheduled meeting. Within the meeting, I believe I referred to it in my testimony to the January 6th committee as I was at my wit's end. I had argued, I had asked questions, I had asked for clarification. We had found dangerous tweets within the meeting, and yet the individual who was the most senior leader within the team in that meeting told us that we were not allowed to take that content down and that we were not allowed to use the coded incitement to violence policy. The reason that she gave us mirrored what we had been told by the former head of trust and safety, Del Harvey, that individuals might be saying things like locked and loaded or stand back and stand by in ways of self-protection. That was not what we were seeing on the platform.
So when you were seeing things like locked and loaded and Civil War Part 2 and race war and so on, were you warning your superiors at Twitter that you thought there was going to be real violence, that this was not hyperbole that was being spoken at that point?
Absolutely. I specifically told Del Harvey herself that someone was going to get shot, as I testified to to the January 6th committee.
You stated that Donald Trump described his own tweets as little missiles. Why did that stick in your mind?
Yes, the quote that you're referring to, I don't remember exactly what news article that it was in, but it was a news article that I had read in which the former president said that he liked to send out his tweets like little missiles. To me, that sounded exactly like weaponization of a platform in his own words, and yet Twitter was not concerned.
All right, well, again, this bears a complete hearing on its own. This is a real issue, unlike something that happened a couple of years ago for 24 hours that has already disappeared in the sands of time. But this is facing us today. As you say, those right-wing violent forces are still out there, and the social media can still be used as a channel for incitement to violent action against state legislatures, school boards, the Capitol of the United States, Congress, and so on. How do we prevent this from happening in the future, and do you think that Twitter is dealing with this problem effectively now?
As I said in my opening statement, we have to do something. There is too much at stake for us to continue to do nothing. And this question of how do we prevent it is a big one. Unfortunately, I do not believe that we are at a place that we can come to solutions because we do not know how these companies work. We must continue to hear from individuals like myself. We must have a seat at the table to be able to share our experiences, because our experiences and the ways that we have succeeded, the ways that we have failed, hold the key to our futures and the key to our democracies.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say I was skeptical about revisiting the whole New York Post thing, where there have already been congressional hearings and they've already apologized for their little lapse, but this is a serious issue, and so I'm glad we at least have the opportunity to begin to talk about it in public. And I yield back to you. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. I'll recognize myself now for questioning. The Biden family investigation